Good morning, everyone. It is that time of month again. Can you believe it? We've actually gone through another month. It's the end of March. And as always, the last Friday of every March, we have one of our experts from our Experts Corner come in to join us to give us a little bit of a talk about exactly what it is they're experts in. And I'm very pleased that today we've been joined by Andi Lehman, who is a sales copyright expert. Good morning, Andi. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Morning, Brian. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You just want to introduce yourself to the world and tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Well, basically, Andi Lehman, that's my name, and I'm a writer, copywriter. Basically, I write sales copy, emails, articles, and that kind of thing. Basically, articles that have a lean towards creating a result, sort of driving sales, getting people onto email lists, that kind of thing.
Fantastic. It's very much a thing that it's not very well published or lots talked about, but it's a very important thing. So Andy's going to obviously give us a little bit of talk about that. So I'm just gonna dive straight in. Before we do that, to anyone who joins us this morning, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. For everyone who joins us, please obviously check Andy out. His website's in the ticker, as you can see. Also, if you have any questions as we go along, please put some comments into the comments box, and if we can answer them, we will do our very best to try and answer them for you here once we're live. If we cannot answer them, then we will go and have a bit of a research after, and we will get back to everyone who posts a question, and we'll try and give best answers as we can. So over to you, Andy. I'm just going to put up the presentations that you've kindly enough.
Yeah. So, okay, it's quite a sort of a long, in-depth, and I hope I haven't gone too sort of around the houses, but it's so basically when you're writing sort of targeted sales copy for blogs, articles, and emails, I've kind of, well, basically let's just sort of dive into it really. Let's just get this screen going. Okay, so today I want to talk about the power of stories and basically how they pass on vital information and help people to make a decision with the use of emotions, because people buy more from emotions than they do from, I suppose, necessarily need and necessity. It's the emotion that makes the decision. The power of emotive words and how they can paint different pictures in a person's mind. Bridging and benefits, why you should focus less on your product features and more on your customers' post-product purchase life. Now, this is more from the form of long-form copywriting. I don't necessarily know if everybody can do this, but basically, if you look at adverts, you will see on TV, they do focus on the life after the product and the power of bullet points and why you should use them. So, stories. So historically, information has been passed down from one generation to the next via stories or songs, such as the Norse stories, the Bible, the Quran, and the Hindu Vedas. Now, stories are brilliant if you're writing, say, emails. It often helps sort of grabs a person's attention. It gives them something to sort of think about or something to pull them into the email itself. You know, you don't really want to go flying in with just a load of facts. So there's a reason for this, and that the reason is that the human mind is wired for stories. There's a great book called, I think it's called Wired for Stories by Lisa Cron. It's more for writers, but basically in that book it is saying how the human mind remembers things and learns things more through stories. And so we retain information through story far better than trying to learn by reading a list of facts. Okay, so this is one of my favorite stories, which highlights the power of story. And that is that the American Navy recruitment success in 1986. So there was a surge of new recruits, but it has nothing to do with any recruitment drive by the Navy itself. So can you have a guess what was driving so many young Americans to try and join the Navy in 1986?
I don't know. Was there some famous book that came out about it or a movie or something?
It was, yes. It was all thanks to the box office Hollywood film Top Gun. Now, Top Gun is obviously it's a film about several new fighter pilot recruits. And as you can imagine, it was crammed full of young testosterone-driven banter. There was bravado with a bucket load of emotion thrown in with, there was death, potential war, and a broken heart. And it was an emotional roller coaster ride, which people loved. And so that film was so popular, it had youngsters sort of lining up to join the Navy, wanting to be the next sort of maverick. And it was so successful as a recruitment drive that it has been said that the Navy placed recruitment stalls inside cinemas. So, and basically, Top Gun is a film, which is a story, and has absolutely nothing. There's
I think we just lost Andy there. Are you with us, Andy? Oh,
we're back. Are you there? Can you see me?
we can see you again. We just lost you there for a second.
Yeah, no. So basically, Top Gun doesn't mention anything to do with like the hours. Doesn't mention anything to do with the benefits or the features of being in the Navy. There's nothing to do with how much you're going to earn per hour, how many hours you're going to do, the heavy work, the hard work. But people were lining up to join the Navy basically because of the story that was told in the film. Now, my daughter Alice is another great example of how story sold an idea. So she went to university because of how it looked on her favourite show, Skins. And Skins was a fictitious drama following a bunch of freshers at uni, and it followed their ups and downs, their partying, but it really focused on the work side of going to university. And Alice herself has admitted that she thinks a decision to go to uni was based on watching that one programme. So it's safe to say that her experience of going to uni differs from the one she watched in those few hour-long shows. Yeah. It was a lot of hard work, and I know that for a fact. So it is, how do we teach children basically dangers? And it is through story. Now, I'm going to share with you a true story which has always had a lasting effect on me. And I always remember when my mother told me about Richard. Now, Richard was a lad who lived several doors down from me on the same street, and he was a bit of a wild child. And one day he was climbing up on a roof of a factory when one of the old corrugated asbestos roof sheets gave way, and he plunged basically several meters to the concrete floor below and had to be taken to hospital with multiple injuries. And I think he was actually in a coma for several days. He was in a bit of a bad way. And so I've never forgotten about that time that my mother told me that incident. And even though it's a factual event, it's a story. You know, she didn't just say, don't walk on roofs, it's dangerous. There was no context, no content there for me to think about. And I always remember that story, and it's helped me out, I suppose, many years, because I used to work as a joiner. And so every time I'm on a roof, I'm always walking across the roofs, wanting to know where to put my feet and make sure I'm wearing the proper safety equipment. So it was very handy remembering that, because it's always been very useful, and it's probably stopped me from doing some very foolish things in my previous career. So now, in his book, All Marketers Tell Stories, Seth Godin talks about the Riedel wine glasses. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Riedel wine glasses. No. These are glasses which they cost quite a fair packet to buy. There can be several $100s to buy a pair of these glasses. Now, Riedel claims that the wine tastes better in their glasses, and their market story is all about how they are designed and made to make the wine taste better, whether it is a £200 bottle of wine or a bottle of Aldi cheap plonk. And they say that all the wine tastes better in these glasses because of the way they are made. And for this reason, they come with that hefty price tag. But here is the interesting thing. There is no scientific data to back up their story. In fact, it is actually quite the opposite. They did a double-blind challenge, and they had two groups of people. And the only scientific data the test supported was the fact that story was the motivator and could change a person's perception of reality and ultimately lead to this specific decision, which is to buy the glass. So they had two groups of people, and they were all asked to drink the same wine, but from different glasses. Now, one of them being the Riedel glass, and the other being a box standard glass that you can buy from any old supermarket. Now, they were asked to rate the wine and say which one of it tasted better. So one group were told nothing about the glasses, whereas the other group were told the whole story of the expensive Riedel glass, which was designed and made specifically to get the best out of the wine. This group were told how the glasses were blown and sculptured into flavour-enhancing shape, which allowed the air to interact with the wine, giving the drinker a far superior experience. They were also told that the other glasses were just regular wine glasses, the kind you would buy from any cheap supermarket. Now, interestingly, the results of the experiment showed that those who were not told the story of the Riedel glass could not differentiate a better taste in wine from one glass, and they scored them basically the same. But virtually all those who were given the story rated that the Riedel glass had a better tasting wine. So they had a better tasting wine experience, and yet the other group couldn't differentiate between the two glasses. Now, this also reminds me of another wine story. This is Cliff Richard. Now, Cliff Richard was reportedly given a glass of his own wine from his own vineyard in Portugal while doing an interview. And it always makes me laugh, is because I used to work for a guy who was a big winey. You know, he liked his wines, and we talked about wine, and I mentioned it to him, and he kept quiet. So Cliff Richard was given this wine, but he rejected the wine because it tasted awful. Now, he wasn't shown the bottle or told where the wine was from. So basically, the only sense he could work with was taste. And so because he wasn't working with the story of the wine itself, and when it was coming from his own vineyard, his experience of the wine was laid completely bare. So hopefully you're beginning to see the power of stories and what they can do basically for marketing your product. If you can build a story, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own story, but you can share story, especially in your emails. If you can share a story to help sort of bring people's attention into your product, stories are an incredible way to get people love stories. They read books by the bucket load, TV dramas, everything, soap operas, they're all stories. And so stories in emails and articles don't even need to be long as well. A headline can often be a story. So here's an example of, this is a sales letter for a company that I work for. And so basically the headline says, "Canny London pensioner confides, here's how I make a tax-free £350 a week, 1,400 a month to 18,000 a year by tweaking a forgotten system the experts gave up on." So that itself is actually a story. So in that headline, the story is basically saying that you can see that there's an old man from London who is basically one of us. So we can identify with him. He's making a tax-free income around 18k a year using a system that those clever boffin types, those who think they are better than us, gave up on. So it's kind of telling you a story. And so basically any hardworking taxpayer is now finding, they're feeling a bit curious. They want a piece of that. And this is one of those, let me just hide that little thing. So this is one of those ordinary, for the ordinary person who hates paying taxes and wants to get one over the clever boffin types. It's a beat the system sort of giving it to the man type story. And that's all in a headline. So the headline itself could have been something sort of, what was it? Sort of make £1,400 a month tax-free on the horses, or something like that, which is factual, but it's not particularly grabbing the person. It's not inspiring them. It's not making them sort of think, if he can do that, I can do that, because it's kind of laid bare. At least if it's a sort of a person you can identify with, and there's a sort of sticking the two fingers up at the taxman sort of thing as well, then it kind of draws a person in. Okay, so going to talk a little bit now about bridging and benefits. Now, this is a great use of when you're writing an email or writing a sales copy. You use story, and you often use a story in the before and after bridge. It's you use story to convey what life was like before your product and what it's like after your product. So yeah, so this is where you tell a person the story of a person's life before your product, then you tell them the story of life after using your product, depending on what your product is, obviously. And then you reveal your product, which is the bridge between the previous life and the new improved life. So life before your product would be hard. It would include pain and struggle, And you'll see these on adverts if you think of teenagers with the spot cream, how the first part of the advert is showing them, they're feeling self-conscious, they're feeling nervous, the girls are not looking at them, they're covered in spots, they're hiding the face. That's the pain, that's the before. And then next minute, you'll probably see them walking down the streets, clear face, or the girls chasing them. And then that's the after story. And then soon it will come up with the product, which will be the spot cream. And so that's like the reveal, that's the bridge between the two different stories. So life after using your product will always include, depending on what your product is, it'll be like free time, be happiness, there'll be ease, there'll be less stress, there'll be no pain, more money. And then the new life came about because of your product, of what your products have delivered. And that's what they were looking for, which is your product. Problem, agitate, solve is a similar thing. So in the format of sort of sales letters and emails, like I said, you've done your before, and then you write your after, and then you can do your product reveal. Problem, agitate, solve is a similar thing, but this time, this is similar to before and after bridge, but this time you identify a problem which is your target audience may have. And so you find out what their problem is, and then you agitate it with a big stick to make it appear worse, to increase emotion, and then you offer up a solution to their problem, which is your product. Now I'm going to use an example which is quite polarizing, but it's a perfect example of targeting your market well and using problem, agitate, solve. And that is the British newspapers do this well. Now they need to sell papers so that people will see the advertising for which they have already been paid for. Newspapers may have a political leaning, but they are just businesses, and this is all they are. They need to make a profit, and they will do what is required to make a profit and protect them profits. So don't be fooled into thinking that they are sharing news and stories out of any ethical or moral intention. Their business model is they charge people to see advertising for which they have already been paid, and they need to sell a lot of papers, and they do that by sharing stories. Well, not any old stories, and unfortunately, they are not always accurate stories either, and often sensationalized to stir an emotive response in their market, which brings us to the next selection, which is emotive words. Now, words are powerful. Words have caused wars. Words have started revolutions. They have turned strangers into lovers. They've turned friends into enemies, and they have built lasting friendships and relationships. Words have built empires. They've made billions of pounds for people. Now, papers like the Daily Mail and the Daily Express, they align with a specific part of the population who they know will buy their paper. So we're still talking about agitate, solve, problem, agitate, solve, but we're using emotive words. They then identify the issues these people have and talk about, and then they poke these issues with a big stick, and they agitate them before offering up a solution which is either perceived or real. Now, they are masters at stirring the emotions, and they use emotive words which their target market will often use in their day-to-day conversations. Now, so a quick warning, the following example is not particularly nice. So as you can see from a screenshot of several papers, if you're telling a story, if you want it to be factual, you would probably say, basically, you would strip out a certain amount of words. There is a lot of emotive words being used here, and they do that for a reason, such as like 4,000 foreign murderers and rapists we can't throw out. Calais, send in the army. These are emotive headlines designed specifically to pull people in using specific words that are aligned with their target audience. So these newspapers use sentences which use words and phrases like, so illegal immigrants. Now, in a person's mind, this will make them think that if they're illegal, they're a criminal, and if they're immigrants, they are not British. So they're here to steal our money, jobs, women, horses, cattle, etc. Refugees, these are completely dehumanizes their experience and whitewashes over their history by making them into bad people. Muslim, people who are not English, white, or Christian. Whole family. Now, the term whole family I love because basically that leaves it wide open. So whole family could be just two people, but the wording makes you think of a number of people, which can include children, grandchildren, parents, in-laws, basically everybody. And then there's claims and demands. That's a word that are used a lot. And that means taking from hardworking British taxpayers. That's how it works in their minds. And then a couple of my favourites are swarm and mass immigration. Obviously, that basically means a lot of unlimited number, too many to conceive. Do you know what I mean? It's you could have a boat of people coming in. There could be 20. 20 is nothing. You go into a pub and there's only 20 people in there. It's considered empty. But if you use the headline, there was a swarm of people coming in this weekend on boats, it makes it sound like it's an invasion. They use the word. Sorry?
It's incredible what power one word can actually have in a sentence, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'm going to show you an example in a minute. There's the use of different and specific words can create a different version of the same story. So a news headline should really say something like, if it's just going to be a headline to convey news, like scared mother seeks safety for her 2 children. Okay. So this makes a person think of a woman who is running scared. She's probably running from an abusive ex-partner or maybe from a bad situation. And all she wants to find is a safe place where she and her 2 children can feel safe. Now, protecting our children is a paramount. It's something that we all want to do. And who could argue against that? Now, unfortunately, the Daily Mail headline would probably say something like, obviously, like I say, I'm just basically what they would sort of say. It's like an illegal Muslim immigrant claims council house for whole family. It can be the whole same story, but in a person's mind, this sentence paints a different version of that same story. It dehumanizes the person and strips her of her sort of real world problems and fears and turns her into a bad person in the minds of a specific reader. So the use of the words illegal Muslim claims and whole family will create a different story in people's minds. Now, these are the words that are probably the terms that these readers that the paper are trying to align with, they're the ones that they'll probably use often. And so they purposely use them to agitate the problem, you see? So, and then they will offer up a solution, which is whatever the paper is trying to get, which is basically trying to get people to buy. Because if you pull up in a petrol station in the forecourt and you see the papers out there before you go to pay for your fuel, and if you're that specifically way in mind, and then you see this giant headline in bold, sort of capital letters, and it's how you think, it draws you in, you're likely to go and buy the paper. And the fact is the paper are only doing one thing, which is getting you, it's a brilliant business model. They're getting you to pay £1 or £2 to pick up a newspaper full of advertising they've been paid for. Yeah. You're paying to read advertising. It's ridiculously ludicrous. It's just brilliant, really. So the first headline can cause people to feel compassion towards the woman and her situation. Even far-right bully boys may feel empathy for her plight because there are no words which can trigger their insecurities. It's stripped bare of any emotive words and only tells a story, the true story of which is of a woman who is scared and looking to find a safe place for her children. But the second headline creates a specific emotional response, and the response the paper wants by speaking to their reader base, using the words that they know will cause them to have basically a meltdown, and buy the newspaper. So you might ask, is there a truth to some of the words? And this is a yes or no answer. See, a refugee is a refugee. There is an element of truth to it, but the difference is that they will often use terms like Muslim refugee as they know the word has power. And for a specific group of people in the UK, those words stir an emotional response, which the papers bank on, literally. So these are the words their readers use in conversation, and they use them to align with their target market and create an emotional response, no matter how irrational, ill-conceived, and wrong these people are. So, not wanting to spend too much time on it, but we'll go from the other angle, and we're talking about sort of aligning with your target market, using the words that they use. If you're not careful, you can also push your market away. So, as an example for the Daily Mail, you will very rarely hear the word Christian terrorist or white extremist when talking about right-wing issues because it alienates their target market. So a homegrown killer who fits their sort of demographic is often referred to as the quiet boy next door, a good guy gone bad, or as in this example, Mr. Normal. So you see, this isn't necessarily an argument against papers, particularly. I'm just trying to use them as an example that they know what they are doing with their wording. So wording is incredibly powerful. So I'm happy to say that things are starting to get better. But putting that all aside, it shows you how powerful it is when you tell a story while using the same language and emotional words that your market uses. Okay, now, if anybody's watching this, if they've got products which have nothing to do with papers, you're probably thinking, well, what words can I, find? So basically, you do need to sort of have a look at what your target audience is and find out what it is that they're using, what are they saying, and try and weave that into your copy, just the same way as the newspaper does. With, So to quickly recap, by using stories and emotionally charged words, I mean, another example is the Marks and Spencer's food adverts. So instead of saying like it's a chocolate cake with sprinkles, it's like a deliciously velvety, smooth chocolate drenched in sort of shaven chocolate particles with a velvety caramel flavored. You know what I mean? They're throwing in these words that create a picture in your mind and make you sort of, you can get the old taste buds going. They are creating emotional responses. So by using stories and emotionally charged words, these papers agitated a problem within their market. They offered up a solution such as leave the European Union, which people believed was the root of the problem. Okay. So I threw this in because there's a reason I'm going to throw this in, but I'm going to read it out. It's quite funny, but I'm not going to mention the study which states that to influence a voter, you need to repeat the same point 7 times. And British newspapers, who hide their profits overseas and wanted Britain out of the European Union so they can avoid tax avoidance investigations and pay more tax, use their 364 days of publication to repeat the points they wanted to get across, such as leave the EU and bugger the rest of you. So I'm not going to mention that. That's a discussion for another day. However, there's a bonus marketing tip in there. To influence a voter, you need to repeat the same point 7 times. Okay, this was a study done in, I think it was the USA. I think there's probably been several studies done now, and there's a great an example of this in the UK, and that is thanks to the Hillsborough disaster in Liverpool, because of the Liverpool fans, and the way that the Sun and other newspapers sort of really vilified the Liverpool fans.
Oh, I think we lost Andy again. It was going so well. He must have rolled his chair over the cord to the internet. Let's just hang on a second to see if we get Andy back. It's really powerful stuff that Andy's going through here with us, and it's very true. Stories. Oh, coming back.
There we go.
Back again.
Back, yeah. So basically, yeah. Liverpool have stayed a strong Labour supporters over the years, and studies have been shown that they believe it's because the Liverpool public, majority of the Liverpool, have turned their back on specific newspapers because of the way they were treated after Hillsborough. So, I mean, you go to Liverpool, you speak to especially a Liverpool fan, and to a degree, Everton fans. You mentioned the Sun, you'd be lucky if you come out without, too many bruises. The Liverpool fans, I've seen them when they're in foreign countries. If they see the Sun in airports, they'll walk past, pick them up, and stick them in the bin. Yeah, they're so passionate about not having that newspaper in their city that a lot of studies have shown that they've not been able to be manipulated, or to a point they do not see the kind of stories that are shared by that newspaper, and so they haven't been motivated down to think a specific way. And so studies have shown that if you want to influence a voter, you need to repeat the same point 7 times. And so that's the same thing with business. So if you want people to buy from you, or to get to know you or what your business does, and if they don't know you, you need to get your message repeated at least 7 times for it to begin to influence someone who is not product or solution aware. product and solution aware. There's kind of like three types of buyer. There's problem aware, product aware, and solution aware. So someone who's problem aware is someone, in your example, is someone who thinks we need to have a website. They know they need to have a website, but they don't know anything else. Product aware is somebody who knows that they need to have a website, which is, let's say, easy to use, WordPress based. So they know the product. The solution aware is that they know that they need to come to the web guys because they can give them a WordPress website and get their business online. Okay, so it's like there's product aware, problem aware, and solution aware. So if someone isn't product aware or solution aware, then you basically need to repeat your message at least 7 times for them to be influenced, to come around to your way of thinking, to know who you are, sort of thing. So if they do not know that they need you or your product, they need to be told, which is repetition, repetition, repetition. Just before I go on to the next part, there's another story to show you the power of how story and repetition can make people think in a certain way. This is a true story of the South African doctor and professor Tim Noakes. I love this story. And this is the fella. So again, this is I'm highlighting this. I'm using this to show you the power of how story can change mass perception. So Professor Noakes recommended a high-fat, low-carb diet via Twitter to a woman who wanted to wean her breastfed baby onto real food. Now, this caused outrage with many doctors and health practitioners around the world. They were calling for Professor Noakes to be struck off. And so the Health Professionals Council of South Africa accused him of unprofessional conduct for giving unconventional advice to a breastfeeding mother. And so they took him to court. So, I mean, eating natural fats is bad for us. That's what most people think. Fat means fat. Eating natural fats makes us fat and leads to heart attacks. Carbs like whole grains are good for us. Basically, it's all wrong. Now, this guy, this is why the Health Professional Council of South Africa, they lost a costly and lengthy legal battle, not once, but twice. That's because Professor Noakes won both cases on the evidence he supplied, which was real scientific facts resulting from years of solid, independent research. But that contradicts what society, both citizens and many health professionals believe is true. And why is that? Because the food industry has billions to spend on marketing, and they provide a story which they repeat over and over again. So basically, since the 1950s, whatever it is, every school, every hospital, everywhere you go has always had this food triangle. So, I mean, who hasn't seen the whole grain badges on cereals or that food pyramid in schools, hospitals, and doctor surgeries? That was, let's just say it was dubious from the start. You know, when there was certain politicians and certain governments who brought it into the public eye, it was wrong then. But the story of it has grown and it has become the normal thinking, and yet it has caused more death and disease than any other government program in, I think, US history. And yet it still exists as the main recommended diet today, although thanks to people like Professor Noakes, it is slowly changing. But he won 2 court cases based on scientific fact and evidence, which was the court case was brought against him by the actual South African Health Authority. So if that doesn't show you how story can manipulate a person into thinking, then I don't think anything will. But it will be the food companies that will change the way we think about it, because they have these huge marketing budgets, and so they will create a whole new story, which they will pay billions to have, seen by people every day until it becomes the accepted view. So it's weird. It's the monster will eventually become the person who changes the story. So story plus emotive words, the language your market uses, with repetition will equal sales. So, and what is a great way to repeat your important points? Bullet points. Okay, so this is the last section. I've waffled on a bit, so this is the last section. Now, when you're writing emails and sales letters, you'll see that bullet points are used a lot. Okay, so bullet points are powerful because they allow you to repeat and reinforce the most important points of your sales message several times. They are punchy, they build interest and desire without giving away too much information. They are quick and easy to read, so they break up your copy. So you've got your story, which is written in paragraphs. If you're doing sales copy, you don't really want to be using any more than sort of 3 sentences per paragraph. You need to break it up. It's not a book, it's not a novel. It needs to be easy to read. They break up your sales copy and catch your prospect's eye, often resulting in your prospect reading your important points first, because people scan through a sales letter, see the bullets. If they find them interesting, then they'll probably go and read the rest of the story. They are great for listing product bonuses, increasing the value of your product. You can repeat and reinforce the points you want your prospect to focus on, such as the benefits. They tease the reader into reading your main sales copy. They condense and compile all of the benefits and features into an easy read list. They keep your prospect's attention and interest. They are great for repeating and reinforcing vital information, which can help the potential customer make a decision. And yes, you did see me repeat the same point several times in those bullet points, because basically I did it on purpose. I want to reinforce the idea of repetition. In sales letters, especially the long form online sales letters, if you look through them, you'll see bullet points through several areas of the sales letter, and they'll often repeat the same thing because they are trying to, I suppose the term is, hammer it home. So now you wouldn't do it in the same sort of list. You wouldn't use the same repetition. You wouldn't have bullet points, the same point 4 or 5 times, but you'd have it spread across the sales letter or the email in different bullet points. So you should do different styles of bullet points, bullet point lists, such as using the traditional dots. But then the next list could be of numbers. Use symbols like ticks, crosses, or arrows, or any other symbols. Just again, it breaks up your sales copy. It gives it that slight difference. And every time you do something, it draws a person's attention into what it is. They're kind of what they call pattern interrupters. So you're scrolling through, because if you think of a book and you've got a page after page after page of block writing, it's all the same. And so with sales copy, when you have your headlines or your bullet points, and then you've got your bullet points with your ticks, they catch your attention and they draw you in because it's something different. I suppose it's like a flashing light in the dark, so to speak. It pulls you in. Now, some copywriters have been known to write hundreds of bullet points, which they then choose the best of the best to add to their sales copy. That's how important they are. I remember reading about one copywriter, and I think he did on average something like 500 bullet points before he'd even start writing the rest of the sales copy. He would just sit and write bullet point after bullet point. And I've seen basically sales letters which are mainly made up of bullet points with a few sentences chucked in between. So bullet points can also tell a story in a very easy to digest manner. So a bit like that headline, like I showed you earlier, you can get a story conveyed into a sentence in a bullet point. So, for example, remember, John makes £200 a day using just his phone, doing no more than 5 minutes work. That in itself is a story. There's a guy who uses his phone, does 5 minutes work, makes £200 a day. It's a real set and forget system, which will make you money while you carry on with your normal daily duties. No wasting time watching your phone for X, Y, and Z. So basically, it's a bullet point. It's telling you that it's a set and forget system. It will make you money while you carry on with your daily routines, and you don't need to sit and monitor your phone for hours on end. So bullet points are great for emphasizing the benefits of your product, and with a benefit, I do mean a benefit, not a feature. So the difference of benefits and features: a feature is the speed of a car, whereas the benefit is getting home an hour early to enjoy more time with your family. Okay, so your car, your Lamborghini, can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. That's great. If you're a bit of a car nerd and you love all that kind of stuff, that's fine. But if you've had a long day at the office and all you want to do is get home, put your feet up and have a glass of wine, you know that this Lamborghini is going to get you home an hour earlier. So that's the actual benefit. So the new Ford Office Shovel Turbo gives you more miles per minute, so you get home twice as fast and just in time to put little Timmy to bed. With the new Ford Office Shovel noise cancelling mode, you can enjoy calmly chatting to your passengers without the need to shout or ask them to repeat themselves like you did with your previous car. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off now, see if this will open up. Now, this is Ben Settle. He's a great example of using PowerPoints in his sales letters. So I don't know if this will work. Let's have a quick look. Okay, so this is a long form sales letter, and if you're interested in polarizing sales copy, Ben's your person to go and have a read. And so there's basically, he'll have all his testimonials, he'll have his story in there. I mean, in fact, his story is he's the black sheep of email specialist. But we're going to quickly scroll down, and there you'll see, not far into it, you have these bullet points. And the bullet points are broken up with, you've got bold, then your next sentence isn't, then again, bold again. And you'll see he's got his ticks down the side. And there's a huge, huge list of bullet points. And what I like about these is because he's selling a book, he's actually drawing your attention to what pages they're on. So he's not giving away what it is on that page particularly. He's not giving you the information, but he's giving you an idea of what is on that page. So you scroll down, huge list, and then a bit more sort of content. And then you go back to another set of bullet points, which again will no doubt it'll repeat some of the points from the previous bullet points. And then we go to a couple more. This time these are numbers. So we're giving some numbers here to discourage the do-nothings, a new product. So these bullet points are different bullet points to the last. So he's obviously using a different system. So instead of ticks, he's got numbers. And these are because he's trying to get people not to buy the book who are going to waste their money. And then I think there was some more on this, but he's got testimonials at the bottom again, which is social proof, good for his product. PS at the bottom, which is also very important if you write these kinds of sales letters. There was one guy who spent the first 5 or 10 years writing sales letter, never used a PS until he started using them. He found that his sales went increased by about 20% per sales page. That's just an extra bonus. I won't tell you the price of the book. It's ridiculously expensive for what it is, but that's how they make their money through these sales letters. So basically, yeah, so that's it. So thank you very much for watching. I mean, that's the yeah, that's everything I got to say about emotive words, bullet points, and stories.
Absolutely brilliant, Andy. There's so much stuff in there that yeah, it's an incredible amount of stuff, really. And I think there was a few images that sort of came into my mind as you went through the stuff. There's one particular, you know, what you mentioned, the marks and sparks. There was an advertising that just came up. I don't know if you remember it. I think it was last weekend for hot cross buns. And I'm not really a big fan of hot cross buns, but there was this marks and sparks advertising of these buns, and when you broke them up, all this melted chocolate flowed out of them. And all I could think was, I need to go down and buy one of those, because I don't really care about the hot cross buns, but that chocolate was just describing in all these fantastic words, and you can sort of see it on screen. It's just, I was almost in the car driving down to buy one. So no,
you see, they're talking to you, to your emotional side. They're selling you an experience. I mean, that's not so much words itself, but it's visual. Like you say, you're ripping it open, you're seeing it, and there's always slow motion as well. So it's slow motion, it's seductive, it's sensual, and they'll even use words like sensual and sort of seductive and decadent. A sentence can basically, a factual sentence could probably have 5 words. But if you want to use an emotional sentence, it might have 10 or 15 because you're like an author. You're painting the scene. You're creating this image in a person's mind, which is the emotional side, which makes them make decisions.
It's extraordinarily powerful stuff, and it's so subtle because as you sort of said before, it's such an old thing. You know, we're so used to stories, you know, being told to us, and it's a very subtle way, as you say, of sort of affecting people's mindset and decision making. So no, listen, Andy, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I can't urge anyone enough to connect with Andy if you're not already. He's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all those places. His website is there, as you can see. I urge you all to go in and follow Andy. And indeed, if you do need any help with any sales copy, there's no doubt, as Andy's proven to us here today, that he is the guy to help you. So so please go and follow him. Andy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I think that there's probably scope for us doing some more of these where we actually break down, into more details on some of them sections, because it's a very broad subject, isn't it? So,
I mean, yeah, I would love to do that. Come back, we can do, talk about like a specific sales page. I mean, I know obviously different businesses have different forms. Long form, I mean, to say that long form sales pages have worked, people have sold watermelons and honey glazed lamb in newspapers with long form sales letters, and sales have gone up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So,
yeah,
we'll definitely get that organized. So once again, thank you very much, Andy, and to everyone out there, thank you very much for watching. Please like and share our stuff here to make sure we get as many people seeing as possible. And you all have a great weekend out there, and we will be back again very soon.
Thank you.